What is up, Badger fans? We got Coach's Corner today. We are welcoming the Dairy Raid back on. What's translatable from Purdue going forward? Schematically, has anything changed from Van Dyke to Braedyn Locke? And then we'll play a little bit of one of my favorite games. I'm the fan, you're the coach. Where do we agree? Where do we disagree? On Wisconsin, let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in as always. I am Ryan Herrings, your host. This is the Locked On Podcast Network. We are going to welcome in Coach Anderson from the Dairy Raid. We haven't had him on for a couple weeks, but it is a Coach's Corner. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Coach, as always, man, thank you for jumping on the show. I want to start here. We saw what we wanted to see against Purdue and then some. Like, that was a great performance. How much of that is translatable? How much of that translates forward to Rutgers, and how much of that was just Purdue's not a good team, objectively?
Purdue isn't a good team, but we beat Purdue with execution along with Purdue being a bad team. We executed schemes better than we have this season. I think the route running was better with certain receivers especially. And we found different ways to get players involved in the game plan. So there's a schematic improvement. There's an execution improvement on top of Purdue being a bad team. And that gives me some hope going forward.
Yeah, I was watching your first quarter breakdown, and everyone should go check out what Coach Anderson does on YouTube over the Dairy Raid. And you kind of nailed it. You were like, finally, something enjoyable we can really sit down and break apart. From a schematic standpoint, did you see anything different with Coach Longo, what he's doing with Braedyn Locke versus what he was trying to do early season with Tyler Van Dyke?
I think you can definitely see what the game plan is with Braedyn in terms of the run game, how they're going to move away from the traditional zone read type run game. They're still going to do some, and the blocking scheme is still set up that way. This game reminded me a lot of early Tanner Mordecai last year, where there was a lot of situations where he could have kept it, but didn't, because he's, I guess, practicing restraint. You know, a good zone read quarterback is not keeping it 50% of the time. A good zone read quarterback is handing it off 90% of the time and keeping it when he absolutely has to. So he's showing that, but what they're doing is more pre and post snap package plays, RPOs. They're getting involved more up the seams with that. And so the run game is still going to be reads, but we're moving the reads from the line of scrimmage to the second level and to the third level. And there's a couple of them where they did that. Down the field passing scheme wise, I think they're going to be working a little bit more in the intermediate range, but they need to work stuff that keeps him from pulling trigger too quickly. And we saw that a little bit where they're working a little bit more downfield. So he has to be a little bit more patient in his progression, where I think against USC, he might have dumped the ball off a little bit early, where against Purdue, he seemed a lot more comfortable going through his progression. And so they've been working schemes with that.
Going under the hood on him a little bit, is that the most impressive thing you saw from Locke against Purdue?
Oh, for sure. He was calm. His footwork in the pocket was really solid. And he was going through his progression, which is good to see. I mean, he is more comfortable standing behind this offensive line. And so he is working across the field. He's getting used to, this game, I think what's most impressive is how many different receivers he had to work with. And yet the common denominator is the progression and the footwork. So he's playing less about who he's comfortable with and more about what he's comfortable doing.
Second half, we get into that rhythm, right? I think you believe, was it 12 in a row? That's really the first time we've seen Braedyn Locke in that type of rhythm, right? And it feels like he almost needs that to get going. Is there a way to jumpstart that in the first half? Like, do you come out against Rutgers? How do you come out against Rutgers? Because Rutgers does not have a great rush defense. And there's a theory you just lean on them a little bit. But I think you need to get Braedyn Locke engaged and going to unlock what we saw in the second half.
Well, I think we saw it right away at first play of the game. They went play action against Purdue and took a shot, and they were a couple inches away from completing that. So they're confident in the downfield arm. I think they might lean. I think they're going to lean on the run game early to get the rhythm. I think that was another reason why this game kind of went so smoothly, is even though the rushing totals weren't great in terms of yards per game, Purdue was playing 7-8 guys in the box sometimes, and we're still able to get 4.5, almost 5 yards a carry with your lead back with a bum knee. So that was positive to see, and I think they're going to lean on that and then get into the read aspects of the RPOs and the zone read stuff that they didn't use against Purdue and take that next step. I think they showed against Purdue that they're just, okay, we're confident in just running the ball against a loaded box. Now we're going to make you play the full field.
Well, and Rutgers is going to do the same thing. They're going to attempt to take away the run. They're going to do it differently. They play more zone. Purdue plays a little more man, but they're also going to say, we're going to put guys in the box and prove to us that Braedyn Locke can beat us, which that should be the game plan for Rutgers.
Yeah. Yeah, and for sure. And I think they did a really good job of, again, kind of getting back to some of those core air raid type philosophical points, like getting the ball in space, getting playmakers in space. They have found ways, like with Tretch, to get around his shortcomings as a receiver. And we look at him, how athletic he is and playmaker he is. He has things he needs to work on: route running in space, getting his stems correct. He has some things he needs to work on. I think we can point at multiple interceptions this year that were his fault. The one against USC, the pick 6, for example, 100% his fault. But they found ways to get him involved that don't take the cerebral part of the receiver game, the experience. It's just like, all right, athlete, let's get you the ball. And they found ways to do it, and I think they're going to build off of that going into Rutgers.
One of the biggest kind of talking points going into that game was obviously Ches walking away or moving away a little bit to work on his body, new running back rotation. How's it going to look? What were your takeaways from the running game in general and the running back rotation, kind of how they divvied up those reps?
I think, well, with Ches, it's been a long time coming. I've been saying all year, and it's no secret, that he just did not look like the old Ches. And who knows what he was actually battling through. And so to go from the 1A and 1B of the committee to more a 1 and then situational guys after that, I think that's smarter. It's kind of what we used to do here, back when James White was the lead back and Melvin Gordon would get a bunch of reps and Corey Clement would get a bunch of reps, and it would just kind of rotate that 3-man. It wasn't by committee, but you had 3 guys to lean on. And I think that's what we're going to see. And I think you're also seeing with the way that Darian Dupree was used and the way that Cade Yacameli was used is Tawee might be the lead back, but there's definite roles for both Dupree and Yacameli.
Yeah, it feels more the pecking order feels more established, which I think allows people to get into a rhythm, which allows the offense to get into a rhythm. It just feels smoother. I do want to ask you, and this is going to be a part of our next segment, but we're talking running game now, so it makes sense. I kind of feel like Yak should get more touches. And is that just the fan in me seeing 7 yards per carry and saying give it to him until he's not averaging 7 yards per carry?
Yeah, I think also as well with Yacameli, they've definitely found what works for him. They found that, he is hitting those outside zone stretches and nailing the cutback awesomely this year. And I think with him, that if he's to get more carries, he needs to be closer to how Tawee is, where it's, you can hit the outside zone, but he can also run between the tackles. So maybe that's why they're diminishing his role a little bit. Also, I think they're just really high on Darian Dupree. And Darian Dupree adds another element with the passing game. And you could see already ways that they're trying to get him involved in the passing game that are signs that they want his role to increase, which unfortunately is going to be at the expense of Yacameli, unless they start maybe cutting a little bit of Tawee's reps a little bit to help him get healthy. But yeah, it's fun to watch. It's the burst is awesome, and the acceleration, but maybe they're just not seeing the complete back that they need to get more touches.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do agree with that. Like, Yak has a bit of Isaac Garendo in him, where neither, I think, had great vision. They would kind of hit it if it was there, but if it was there, they were the type of back that could hit it to get 20 or 30. And I think it's kind of what separates them, because they hit it with a lot of speed, they cut it back, and they're just north-south, foot in the ground, go. Neither has great vision. I don't think that's where Dupree and potentially Dylan Jones, who I thought flashed in this game as well, come in and maybe have more of that vision. What do you think of Dylan Jones and kind of some of his first reps? I know he's played already, but kind of first extended reps here.
I like them both. And it's his ability to keep his shoulders square. And it seems like he's moving laterally, getting stuck behind a pile, and then all of a sudden he bursts free. That kind of short area burst is such a welcome change, because we haven't had that in a lead back in a while, maybe since Jonathan Taylor for sure, where they could get lost behind the pile and then all of a sudden they're gone. I mean, that last carry, he had for that 47 yards, whatever, it's just like that, where it just looked like he was stuck, and then all of a sudden, how did he get there? And he's gone. Yeah, so he's just got a knack for a young guy to just keep his feet moving and then wiggle his way through. For a guy with pretty decent size, he's a nice balanced back, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Future is absolutely bright with those two in the running back room going forward. Much more coming up, plus Rutgers game predictions with Coach Anderson from the Dairy Raid. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show, new friends of the show over at Zybotics. Zybotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Zybotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel better tomorrow. Here's how to use it. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. Drink the Zybotics pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready for the day. Go to Zybotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Zybotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to Zybotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Today's episode is also brought to you by our great friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the number one source for all your sports betting needs. Parlays, futures, teasers, spreads. Wisconsin plus 2.5 this weekend. If you're listening to Curtis, if you're listening to Justin, if you're listening to Coach Anderson, they all got Wisconsin covering this thing. I think Wisconsin wins as well. So head over to FanDuel.com. First $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel. Great time to do it. Always do it responsibly. But NFL's in action, baseball playoffs, basketball's coming up, obviously college football. Great spot over at FanDuel.com. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network and a bunch of other people. FanDuel is awesome. It's incredibly easy, fast, simple to use. Plus $5 gets you $200 bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel.com. All right, let's get back into this conversation with Coach Anderson and start chopping up Rutgers. All right, we're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show. We're going to come back and play a little bit of fan versus coach, different viewpoints, or maybe they'll be the same viewpoints. We'll see. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show, new friends of the show over at Zybotics. This is something Badger fans are going to enjoy and going to like. Zybotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Zybotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you will feel better tomorrow. Here's how you do it. Step 1, drink Zybotics. Drink the pre-alcohol drink for your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Enjoy. Get some varsity. Help the program. Go out, have some fun with the friends. And then step 3, you're going to enjoy tomorrow because Zybotics is going to take care of that hangover before you even get there. Go to zybotics.com/lockedoncollege. Get your 15% off your first order of pre-alcohol when you use Locked On College. Today's episode also brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Talked about it a lot. FanDuel is the number one source for all your sports betting needs right now. That $5, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. That's $200 guaranteed. And listen, if you've been listening to Curtis on the show, if you've been listening to Justin on the show, they are all over Wisconsin beating Rutgers. So head over to FanDuel.com, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Take some Wisconsin plus 2.5 against Rutgers this week. And if you're trusting in Curtis and Justin, I also think Wisconsin will win, but I always bet on Wisconsin. So I don't know how much you want to roll with me on that one. That's FanDuel.com, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, let's get back with Coach here. Coach, really quick, let's talk Rutgers. Curtis came on the show. Love Curtis. Justin came on the show. Love Justin. They're both really confident in this weekend's game. I feel like I want to be there, but I haven't seen – I don't think I've seen Wisconsin play 60 really good minutes yet this season. I think we've seen 40 good minutes, 30 good minutes. Where should I be on this confidence scale? Where are you at?
Greg Schiano is a great college coach. And he's getting Rutgers back to what Rutgers was before he left the first time. And he's building a real solid Big Ten type program at Rutgers. Talent-wise, we're a better team. I think, skill position-wise, we're more solid. Where they're weakest in the run defense is where we're stronger in our run offense. So on paper, I think we're a stronger team, but I wouldn't count out a well-coached program like they have, who also are being coached with a little bit of an attitude. Everyone knows how Schiano coaches, and his players have the same edge. So if the Badgers can play and get on the bad side of that edge, you play against players who have an attitude problem or something like that, and then you start whooping them in a little bit, then they kind of go off the rails. If you can kind of get in their head a little bit, it takes that edge away. And then I think our talent level should be capable of beating them. But we can't get caught in a slugfest. We've got to play within our system, and we've got to be on the attack like we were against Purdue.
How important is this game? Just in terms of, you just put together probably your best performance of the maybe LSU bowl game, but coming off that performance to stack another good one, the team is feeling some confidence. Braedyn Locke looked great in the second half against Purdue. How important is it to stack another one, and what happens to the team's psyche if you don't do that?
Oh, for sure. It's building that confidence that finally they did what was advertised. They finally executed where for the longest time we complained that they didn't. They've got to show it's not a fluke. They have to show that it's coming together, and the adversity, whatever you want to say, that over the last season and a half has finally come to fruition and built a solid team. If they come out flat against Rutgers, then we're going to say it was all fluke against Purdue. I don't think it was. I think with Purdue, it was a lot of great execution that led to the big score. I think if it was just we beat them because they were bad, it would look more like the Western Michigan game. Right. It'd be more like a 24-17 type of game. But the fact that we were solid in all three phases of the game, we're not talking a lot about how the defense actually played pretty solid and, held on they held two interceptions to field goals.
Yep.
Big plays on special teams. That is a sign that the program is coming together and isn't as much of a fluke. But they have to continue because they need the momentum going into, the harder part of the Big Ten season, with Oregon coming up and Penn State coming up. if they want to get to a bowl game, get the 4 wins now, so then we can cash, have a little bit of breathing room going into Northwestern and Minnesota, et cetera, which those games, Minnesota beat USC this weekend. It shows that none of these games are going to be cakewalks, but if you want to go to a bowl game, you can't be riding on, we have to win against Oregon and Penn State to get into the postseason. It's, if we win, that's going to help us secure a better spot in the postseason. We have to win these type of games against the Rutgers and the Northwesterns and the Minnesotas, even if they're getting better.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's about mojo and momentum, but it's also about, you just need the friggin' wins. Like you gotta get these wins, because the other ones coming up, man, at Iowa, Nebraska's not a gimme, Minnesota's not a gimme. You mentioned the other difficult ones. The other part of this game I think is interesting, because I think you nailed it, man. I think our rushing offense is going to play out well in this game. It's going to cause some issues. Rutgers going to have to commit to stopping that a little bit more. That's going to allow Locke to eat a little bit. But conversely, if I'm a Rutgers fan or a national analyst, I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying I can run the ball. Rutgers, I can run the ball. Wisconsin's rush defense hasn't been great at times this year. I'm going to do the same thing to them. How's our defense, do you think, going to stack up to Monongai in that Rutgers running game? Well, I think he kind of reminds me. I said this the other day. Curtis Holm pushed back, and I love Curtis, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Anthony Davis. He's a little bit bigger, but just not a top end running back, but just a tough, undersized between the tackles, makes guys miss. You can give him 30 carries. He doesn't wear down. Just a really good, tough, dependable running back.
He's an old school running back for sure. And that fits what Schiano wants to run in his program anyways. But when you play against a team that relies kind of on a bell cow back like that to grind things out, the easiest way that we can combat that is by having an offense that can score quickly and can get chunks and then can play even more, ball control. And that will allow the defense to play a little bit more top down. When you play against a team that is run heavy, you got a big back, a back that is, again, the bell cow kind of back. You kind of play from the bottom up, where you're focusing on controlling the line of scrimmage, keeping everything there. And that opens you up not only for shots to the outside, but also get shots deep. If you are able to play with a little bit more control and play from the top down, where you're funneling everything down to the line of scrimmage, that's a way that you can control a back like him, where you're attacking him with layers. Mm-hmm. And you're building redundancy into the defense. And that's what they need to be able to do. So they need to be able to control the outside with their man coverage on the outside and be able to play top down on the inside. That will be able to guard against any play action or anything coming off of it, but then also come downhill on the ball in the run game. And I think as they're starting to get these rotations a little bit more crisp, I think starting to get a little bit better play from the defensive line, especially Elijah Hill's stepping up a little bit, which is really good to see. I didn't have as many what the heck was he doing moments with the linebackers this weekend that we have been having the last few weeks. And you can see the rotations are starting to settle in. Some, it's less about trying to get everybody reps and more about, okay, let's get the winning guys reps. So I'm hoping that continues. I don't think we need to put up 53 points or 52 points to beat Rutgers, but the defense needs to continue what they built on last week for sure.
And I actually agree with you here. I think the defense has tightened up. I think the defensive line has slowly played a little stouter, and I think the linebacking rotation is cleaner now. So I agree. It actually gives me some confidence, and I think our secondary can man up on there's not a Rutgers receiver I look at that terrifies me. After a couple weeks of playing Bama, USC, Purdue doesn't really have a guy out there either, but this is not the greatest collection of weaponry this secondary is going to see. So they should be able to maintain their coverage there. We're going to take one quick break, come back and finish off with a couple quick questions with Coach, maybe get a game prediction. As always, appreciate everybody tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Today's episode brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement bonus on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right, let's get Coach back in here, finish off this show. As always, Coach, man, appreciate the time. I know a lot of people watch this show, follow what you're doing anyway, but where can people, if they don't, where can people follow what you're doing?
Yeah, everything at the Dairy Raid. YouTube been doing the breakdowns all through the season. As long as YouTube doesn't take them down, that is. But it's been really good this year with the better quality film that I've had access to this season. We've really been able to kind of break things down and see things that you can't quite see in the broadcast angle, and going to continue with that all season.
Let's play a little fan versus coach, which that sounds antagonistic. It really might not be. We may agree on these takes, but these are just the premise here is things that I think. I'm going to throw it to you and see if the coach brain agrees, disagrees, or somewhere in the middle on this. Fan versus coach. Vinny is our most dangerous receiver.
Dangerous, possibly. Consistent, no. With right now with the injuries and stuff like that, I think the biggest threat is Tretch. The most consistent threat for consistent big yards is probably Vinny Anthony. Consistent catches is probably Bryson Green right now, because I think Will Pauling is a little off this year. So I'd probably put it. Yeah. So if you want a guy that you have the best odds to get 15 yards, it's probably Vinny Anthony. If you want the guy who's going to get you 70 yards, it's probably Tretch, even though the numbers might be a little lower. And if you need a guy who's going to get you a catch, it's Bryson Green.
What's your take on Pauling this year? Like he's obviously struggled a little bit hanging onto the ball.
I think he has made some weird like leverage reads, etc. this year, where I think he's starting to overthink things a lot more than he did last year. He seemed so comfortable with where he fit in the route structure. This year he doesn't have as much confidence, and I don't know why. I don't know if there's an injury that we don't know about, or he just doesn't have the same connection with TVD and now with Braedyn Locke that he had with Mordecai. But yeah, I'm not quite sure, because that safety valve that we had is not where it was, and that safety valve is starting to turn into Bryson Green, which is at least that the slack is being picked up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree there. It is interesting. Fan take. We don't blitz a ton because Tressel doesn't trust our guys to consistently win one-on-ones.
I think we're not blitzing as much because I don't know if we have the necessary athletic ability at all the spots to get there consistently. I think, we have our top three corners can run with anybody, and I'm pretty confident with that. I don't think it's necessarily a coverage reason why we're not blitzing.
I think I'm agreeing with you. I meant our pass rushers don't consistently win one-on-ones when we blitz.
Oh, for sure. Yep. For sure. I think part of the issue is I think our interior linemen they're getting better, but they're still not where they need to be in terms of holding double teams, getting penetration on their slants, which causes the protection to go one way so we can blitz the other. Our linebackers are having a little bit of an issue with shedding. Daryl Peterson has had issues with that. And then also, when Aaron Witt is your most consistent outside linebacker, you lose a little bit in pass rush. So, and that changes what they do scheme wise. So yeah, they definitely need to get better at winning those battles so they can bring more, because I think we're starting to get the guys who can run in coverage, which means you can start bringing 6, 7, heck, 8 guys if you want to bring more pressure.
I know they scored a touchdown, but the end of the first half still wasn't handled with the either urgency or time management skills you'd want to see in a closer game against a better opponent.
Disagree.
Okay.
Because I thought that was a solid 4-minute drill. They took over the ball with 3 minutes and 27 seconds left on the clock. That drive was about bleeding the clock with a lead, knowing that they were going to come out in the second half and get the ball in the second half. They wanted to score with as little time left on the clock as possible. So then Purdue didn't get the ball back. Then they can carry all that momentum of scoring with 9 seconds left. And they had a timeout left. So it was calculated. It might not have looked as pretty as we might have liked, but the fact that they scored with 9 seconds left on the clock and a timeout means they knew what they were doing. And then they came out in the second half and they scored. And that put the game away right there. That turned a 21-6 to 21-6 or 28-6, and the game was done at the beginning of the second half because they were methodical in their approach on that last drive.
Yeah, it definitely worked out. And that's something Coach Fick talked about in his presser as well. But, what did we really lose there? He was answering questions, well, a couple seconds maybe. And you're right. They scored, they backed it up, scored again, and it did put the game out of reach. Last one here was Purdue is bad. We all know that. But we also weren't as bad as people were starting to think.
I would agree. I think we have played down below our talent level all season. And it's not a scheme thing. It's not necessarily a roster thing. It's just we have played bad football. And this week we finally played, for the most part, good football. And a lot of what we did right in this game was based on our players executing and doing their job instead of just, Purdue is bad. That helps. And that's why the game was 52-3. If we executed the same level and played against a 3-2 regular Big Ten team, maybe it's 28-3.
Mm-hmm.
We execute like that and play against a high level team, maybe the game's a lot closer than it should have been. There's a good team in Madison right now. It's been there all along. Maybe they're starting to realize it.
That's a great line right there.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping, because I've seen glimmers all season, and it's frustrating to watch it. That's why I said this film was the first one I actually enjoyed breaking down, because, well, when you look at it as a coach, you can always see the things that they can do right and they can do better, and then they finally did it. It's like, yes, the coaching points are finally sticking, and this was the get right game that we needed.
No, I love that. Give me on your way out, if you have one, if you thought about it, your Rutgers kind of score prediction.
28-6, 35-14, something like that.
I love it.
I don't know. I'm feeling confident. And I know I'm going to get lambasted in the comments for being that confident with how bad this team is. But I saw a team that was closer to what I've been hoping for all season. So I'm hoping it continues. So I'll be confident and say somewhere's in that range.
I love it, man. And listen, I'll say this, not many people watch more film or more ball than you do, or Curtis goes back and watches regames, and both of you guys are very high on the Badgers in this game, and Justin as well. So, yeah, I love it. He is Ryan Anderson over at the Dare Raid. Go check out his work, please. He does incredible stuff. There's a reason we try to get him on the show, because it makes all of us smarter. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. We will talk tomorrow on Wisconsin.